In 1990, when George Bush Sr. sent troops into Iraq, Congress also supported this decision. The mainstream media, by and large, mirrored the consensus by producing news coverage that supported the decision. According to political scientist John Zaller, only 23% of Americans who watched very little news in August of 1990 supported the invasion. On the other hand, 76% of Americans who habitually watched the news supported the invasion. To fully understand how mass media and other influencers persuade us, we have to understand our cognitive responses to the communicated messages. Anthony Pratkanis and Elliot Aronson describe this cognitive response further in their excellent book, Age of Propaganda, The Everyday Use and Abuse of Persuasion. Influence depends on how a message is interpreted and responded to by the recipient, which could vary depending on the individual, the situation, and the appeal. For example, sometimes we think carefully about what is said. At other times we think very little and follow our initial prejudices. And still, other times we may be overcome with emotions, our fears, our hopes, our insecurities, to such an extent that it clouds our judgment. Pratkanis and Aronson go on to describe the cognitive response approach to persuasion. Much research shows that there is little relationship between what someone recalls of a message and whether he or she will be persuaded by that message. The cognitive response approach has given us one of the most important laws for determining the effectiveness of a persuasive tactic. The successful persuasion tactic is one that directs and channels thoughts so that the target thinks in a manner agreeable to the communicator's point of view. The successful tactic disrupts any negative thoughts and promotes positive thoughts about the proposed course of action. We often respond to propaganda with little thought. Ellen Langer and her team conducted a series of experiments on mindlessness. In one experiment, they approached people at a busy copier and said, "Excuse me, may I use the Xerox machine?" About half of the people allowed the researcher to cut in front of them to use the copier. The fascinating part of the experiment is that they found if they gave a reason for why they needed to use the copier, almost all the people allowed the researcher to cut in front of them. Many times, the reason was as simple as, "Excuse me, may I use the Xerox machine? I need to make copies." Advertisers understand that often any reason will do. The communications expert Ivan Preston made a catalog of typical claims made in mass media advertising. He notes that many ads trumpet trivial differences as if they were important, state non-facts that make the brand appear impressive, such as "Coke is it," whatever it may mean, and exude meaningless superlatives such as "Bayer, the world's best aspirin," when all aspirin are alike. In other words, just about any reason apparently will do. We can be persuaded when we are being thoughtful. For example, when approached by a panhandler, most of us mindlessly ignore them and continue on our way. Pratkanis and Aronson conducted a series of experiments where they sent students out to panhandle for charity. One group asked for a quarter or spare change, while the other group asked for a specific amount, like 17 or 37 cents. They found that 60% more people contributed to the group who asked for a specific amount. They reasoned that the specific amount made people mindful of the solicitor, wondering what they needed that exact amount of money for. Is it for a bus ride, a specific food purchase? Richard Petty and John Cacioppo argue for two routes of persuasion, peripheral and central. The peripheral route occurs when the recipient devotes little effort in discerning the message. An example of this would be listening to a podcast advertisement while mowing the lawn or watching a debate on television that you're not interested in. In these situations, the effectiveness of the message is determined by superficial cues, such as the attractiveness of the messenger, whether or not others agree, the pleasure or pain associated with agreeing with the position, and of course, whether a reason is given, no matter how ridiculous the reason for doing what the message asks you to do. The central route occurs when we are carefully considering the true merits of the information in the message. What determines whether we are processing a message peripherally or centrally? Petty, Cacioppo, and Goldman found that the personal relevance of the message determined the route of persuasion. You can be persuaded centrally if the message is personally relevant to you. If not, you are more likely to be persuaded peripherally. In many ways, we are cognitive misers, forever trying to conserve our cognitive energy. Given our finite ability to process information, we often adopt the strategies of the peripheral route for simplifying complex problems. We mindlessly accept a conclusion or proposition, not for any good reason, but because it is accompanied by a simplistic persuasion device. In the modern age, with unlimited information at our fingertips, we've become cognitive conserving experts, saving that cognitive ability for only the very relevant information. We live in a society eerily similar to Aldous Huxley's Brave New World, where we are bombarded by entertainment and information to the point that we cannot decipher the truth from fiction, nor do we have much desire to do so. I write stories that reflect the truth about government and our society. If you'd like to learn more and support my work, check out my books at the link below. Thank you.